Jean Bobish here with another lesson on card making, and today I'm making these beautiful Easter cards. My husband's family is Russian Orthodox, and they have a different cross than other religions. And my sister-in-law called me up and asked me if it would be possible to make her some cards that she could hand out to some of her friends at church. And she had certain stipulations. She wanted the Russian cross on the front, and inside she wanted Christ is risen, glorify him. So I thought, well, that's easy enough. That should be no problem. But I could not find a cut file anywhere for a Russian cross. So what I did was I found, after searching frantically, a clip art file that I thought would work wonderfully for the front of my cards. So I'm going to show you how I changed that clip art into a cut file on my Silhouette Cameo in a few minutes, but I want to explain a little bit more about this project. Now this card here is nice, and it could actually be mailed in an envelope, except it has some pearls on it, so you will have to mark hand cancel on the envelope, and it will cost you a few more pennies to mail. But other than that, it's relatively flat. Now she had a few other friends that she wanted just a regular cross for, and I was able to create that the same way. Now you can see that my cross, the actual cross itself, is gold metallic, so it is reflecting in the lights. I'm sorry about that, but that was one of the stipulations I wanted for the design. Now I've also made versions of the card with roses on them, which I love to embellish my cards like this. The only problem is that they are so thick and the roses are so raised that they won't fit in an envelope. So in order to mail these, I created these nice boxes made out of magazine backer board, which is sturdier than cardstock. It's almost like chipboard consistency, but the nice thing about it is it is white and it is glossy on one side, semi-glossy, and it is flat on the other side. So it makes really professional looking boxes. And once you put your card in there and you set the lid on, look what a beautiful gift that is to give someone for Easter. Isn't that nice? And I've done them in several different colors. That was another request. She didn't want them all exactly the same. It's pretty green with the box lid. And another thing I did, which would make a wonderful gift for someone, is I took it and I put it in a shadow box frame. Now I'm trying to keep the glare from my lights off of it, but as you can see, look how pretty that is, all framed up in the frame. And because there's no sentiment or anything on the front of the card, you could leave this out year-round, hung on a wall somewhere special, and they would always be reminded of this beautiful gift you made them. So let's switch over to my other computer, and I will show you how I went about creating the cut file for my Russian cross. Today I'm going to show you how I created my Russian cross. I found this clip art online, it was free clip art, and I thought it would be perfect and an easy cross to use to make it into a cut file to use on my cards. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go over to your trace button, which is up here. It's a little square in a square, and you want to click select trace area. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select my cross. And you can see, well, I'm bringing in a little bit. Okay. I want to select my cross. And you see how it turns yellow. Well, I want to pick this high pass filter here. And I want to make sure that it is all yellow. There's no broken lines, no black portions or anything. And this was a really good piece to do this with. Now sometimes you might have to turn that off and mess with some of these other areas down here to get it just right. But I'm happy with this. So I'm going to come here where it says trace. And I'm going to click that. Now you can see there's some red lines around my cross. So I'm going to take my original image and I'm going to put it over here to the side. I like to keep these with my files so I know what my project or piece is going to look like. Now I'm going to take my cross and I'm going to hit Object and I want to release compound path. Now there's 3 layers to this and you can see there's 3 boxes. So I'm going to click off and I'm going to click on this outer layer because I don't want that. So I'm just going to toss that and get rid of it. So here's what I'm left with. Now I want to put a second layer because I want this outer shape to be one color. Then I want another shape around the cross. It's going to be a second color, and then I want my cross to be gold. So, in order to do that, I'm going to move this cross over here, and I'm going to select this little bullseye button. Well, first I have to select the cross, I'm sorry. Then hit your bullseye button, and it will automatically create an offset around your cross. Now, if you want a wider one, you just slide this distance, and you see you can get a bigger or a smaller depending how much of an offset you want. I want to keep the original, so I'm going to go with that. Excuse me. So I'm happy with how that looks, and I'm going to select it, and I'm going to group it. Now I'm going to bring it over and get it right where I want it on my cross. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. And I'm going to group these together. Now, my cross is 6 inches tall, and I don't want it that big. I want it to be 4 3/4. So again, I'm going to select it. I'm going to come up here to the scale, and where it says height, I'm going to change it to 4.75. You want to make sure that this is checked, because as it makes the change to 1, it'll automatically adjust your width. So I'm going to hit apply, and now you will see that my cross is 4 3/4 inches. Now I'm going to choose this again, and I'm going to ungroup. And because I grouped this together, I have to ungroup that again also. So now I have my 3 shapes. And just for ease of cutting out and whatever, I like to color them in. So I'm going to select, whoa, didn't want to do that. Edit, undo. Okay, I'm going to choose this, and I'm going to go up to my little spilled paint can up here at the top, and I'm just going to pick a color. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to move that aside, and then I'm going to do the same for this one. Pick another color. Whoops. And then I'm going to do the same for the third. So that just gives me an idea of what it will look like when I put it together with 3 different colors. Okay? And you can see our original, and you can see how I've changed it to work with what I want to work with. Now the next step is relatively easy. Just like you know, you put your paper in and you'll cut each color separately. Don't forget to adjust your cut settings for the type of paper you're using. You can drag them off your paper and do them one at a time, like so. The other thing I want to mention is I want to save this for future use. So I will come over here and I will put save as, save to library. And then you can come over, see I've already done it. So this is Russian cross, and you can put any kind of information you want in there and then just close it, and then it will appear in my own designs in your library. So that's pretty much how easy it is to create your own simple cut file from an image from the internet. So I will join you later at my other table, and I will show you how I put my card together. Now, to create this design, I thought about colors, and I decided I wanted to use 2 colors and this vanilla cream. I thought they went very nicely together. And a light, or a darker and sort of a medium to light, and then the vanilla cream. And I knew that I wanted my crosses to be gold. And for that, I had some of this, and again, it's glaring. I apologize for that. It's printable gold foil from Silhouette. And what it is this wonderful metallic paper, and it has an adhesive back to it, which makes it nice because whatever you cut out, you can just peel off and stick it onto your surface that you want to use it. So this is what I used for the foil, and I wanted some dimension on my card, and I wanted to raise the cross up off the card since that is our main focal point. And instead of using little dimensionals, those little foam squares or the foam tape, I used craft foam for kids. And I will show you how I cut that out and use it. And I like that much better for my cards. So to get started, what we are going to need to make this card is I have a sheet of 10 by 7 vanilla cream card. This is from Coordinations, and I've scored it down the middle at the 5-inch mark, and I'm going to fold it in half. And that is my base card. Okay? The other thing we will need is 2 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 of your dark color. And that is going to be matted on the front of our card, and I'm going to use this snail tape for that. And I'm going to place it centered on the front carefully. I try not to press it down until I get it exactly where I want it. And I hope my head is not getting in the shot here. Alright, so there's our front. Then I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to put it on the inside also. I love to embellish the inside of my cards a little bit and make them a little fancy. I just think it makes for a nice presentation and just gives a little added something to the card. Now you're going to need 1 piece of your vanilla that will be 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And that is going to get matted on the inside on top of our darker color. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. press it in place. And there you have it. Now, for our little sentiment, for that I used my Spellbinders Decorative Labels 8. And out of our lighter color, I cut out a piece using the next to the smallest die. And I already cut that out. And then she wanted it to say, Christ is risen, glorify him. But of course I didn't have a stamp for this. So what I did was I printed it out on my computer, and I used the coordinating Spellbinder Labels 8, and I used the second to the smallest, which fits perfectly inside of this decorative piece, and I cut that out around the wording on my Cuttlebug. Now you could use different dies if you have them, whatever suits your mood. I just happen to really like these two together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this, and center it on this mat piece, like so. And then I'm going to adhere it to the inside of my card at the top, like that. And there's plenty of room to write a little note and to sign it. So the inside of our card is basically finished. But doesn't that look pretty when you open it up and you see a little more fanciness on the inside? So now we're going to come back to our outside. And I chose this particular die because to me it kind of looked like a banner, and it would look like our cross is hanging off the banner. And this is the Spellbinders 5x7 Heirloom Legacy. And I used the largest die, and this is how it cut out. So I'm going to adhere this to the front of my card, and I'm going to use my snail tape. See a piece here that didn't totally pop out. I want to get that off of there. And then, excuse me, but I have to open a new pen. I'm going to use one of these quickie glue pens from Sakura, and I really like these. I used up my other one already. I like it for two reasons. It has this kind of funky cap on the top, so I don't actually accidentally pick it up and use it as a pen. And it has a ballpoint edge. Now, when you first get it, there's a little protective covering on here. You want to take that off and throw it away. And now you just basically write wherever you want to apply your glue. And as you can see, you can get a really nice little bead on here. And I'm just following all this fancy filigree, basically getting the outside edges so that they stick down. And the glue flows so nicely out of this pen. You get a nice even application. And I'm going to make sure I get some across here. And you want to work quickly because it dries pretty quick. So you want to move as fast as you can. We don't want to be sloppy. So I'm just going to continue placing this all down here. Make sure I have a goodly amount. Okay, I think I got it all. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to center it on the front of my card. Like so. And I'm going to push and add pressure where I have that glue pen. Whoops, I don't want to break that. Okay, and I have some glue showing through here. Let me get that off. Okay, and there we have our front of our card. Now the next step is I was going to show you how I cut out the fun foam. So I'm taking the ring, the second largest die from here. I'm going to grab my Cuddle Bug. I'm going to set my card aside. And I'm going to take my foam. And I'm going to have to cut this extra piece off for now. And I save every single little piece because you can use them for all kind of things whenever you want a little bit of dimension. And I'm going to place my C plate, my foam, my die cut side down, and my B plate. And I'm going to run it through. Okay, and this cuts like butter, and it pops right out, and there you have the perfect size for our oval that we're going to mount our cross on. Now before I put the Cuddle Bug away, I want to show you this oval piece, can you see, has been embossed. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. Bring the Cuddle Bug back. Oh my God, all my cords here getting tangled up. And you're going to cut your oval out of vanilla cream like you normally would, but you're not going to take the paper out of the die. Okay, so it will be like this. You're going to take your A plate. You're going to put down a shim. Now this is just a metal shim from Cherry Lynn Designs. You're going to lay down your folder, and I'm using the Doris polka dots. And you're going to set that, and I have the raised dots facing up. So my oval will actually be debossed instead of embossed. Now you do not want to close this lid. If you close this lid, the cut part of the die will cut into the plastic of your folder and it'll ruin it. So again, I have my A plate, my shim, my folder, my paper in the die with the cutting side up. Then I'm going to place my rubber mat, and then I'm going to put my C plate. And I'm going to feed that through like this. And I like to go back and forth a couple times. Doesn't really matter, but I like to do that. Now I'll put my bug out of the way, and we will open this up. And there is my oval. And it is debossed. My dots go inward instead of popping out. And I don't know if you can see, but the edge of the die is not embossed. This stayed flat because our die was in there and protected that area from the embossing folder. So this is a really neat technique, and it works really, really well on some of the more intricate edged dies than just a plain old oval. So I'm going to move all this stuff out of the way. And I have my craft foam piece, and I have my oval. And right now they are the exact same size, and I don't want it to be. So I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm just going to snip off about 1/8 of an inch all the way around this oval. Doesn't have to be perfect because it's not going to be seen. Get rid of that. And now I will take some of my adhesive and I will place it on my oval. Make sure you have the right, you want the back side of your oval, and you're going to place this on top. Okay, then I'm going to bring our card back over, and I'm going to add more adhesive. And I'm going to place this right on top, centered. Now feel how I'm rubbing on that. This is solid. You don't have to worry about not having enough little glue dots and that it's going to cave in. And this is a firm, thick piece, and you can see that it is raised off of our card, and it looks really, really nice, and it will go through the mail nicely too. Now I'm just noticing here that my one corner is kind of curling up a bit, so I'm going to stick some of that glue underneath there and catch it before I forget about it. Now the next thing we're ready to add is our cross. And as I said, it's going to be in 3 layers, like so. And I cut out several crosses because I was making so many of these cards. And this is the silhouette paper, printable foil. And if you have your settings on your machine just right, these will peel off very easily, and they're sticky on the back. It's like a sticker. It's so cool. And then we're going to try and line this up. I'm just going to barely tack it till I make sure I have it nice and straight, and of course it isn't. So I'm going, whoops, I'm going to try again. That looks a little better, I think. Okay, now I'm happy with that, so I'm going to press it down. And that's all there is to it. That printable foil is really awesome. Then we want to adhere this onto our background cross. So again, I'm going to apply some adhesive. And it's making a lovely mess everywhere. So get rid of all that extra. And try this again. I don't know. I think I got a bad batch of these snail tapes. These ones are just giving me a devil of a time. But anyway, now again, I'm going to try and line it up straight and centered. Okay, and that looks good. Got some more glue. We have our cross, and it is ready to be adhered onto the front of our card. So I'm going to add adhesive on here, which I've run out. Hold on, let me grab another one. Sorry about that. Okay. And I'm going to center this onto the card. The next thing I want to do is I want to add some pearls. I don't want to overdo too much for the one that's going to go in the mail. So I'm going to take some, this is clear tacky glue, and I'm going to just put a little dab everywhere I want to put a pearl, which is across the tops. Now I'm using a slightly larger size for the center, and then I will come down to this next size down for my corners, and I'm just putting them in a loop. I just love this one Spellbinders die. I don't know why, it just looks so regal and beautiful behind the cross. I'm so thrilled with how these cards turned out, and I hope you like them too. Hope my sister-in-law likes them. And there you go. Now once those dry, this will be ready to stick in an envelope and you can mail it. But I thought about the people that were going to get these hand delivered to them, and I thought, well, since they're not going through the mail, I can do a little bit more with this card. And I wanted to add some roses. I love roses. I'm a sucker for roses. I love them on my cards. I love them in person. They're just fabulous. So let me plug in my glue gun and get my stuff for my roses, and I'll be right back. Okay. In order to do the roses, I have used the Spellbinders Bitty Blossoms die set, and I've used the largest and the medium size dies to create my flowers. And after you cut them out and you pop them out of the die, this is what they will look like. That's the medium and that's the large. The other thing, you will need 2 large and 4 medium for your card. The other things you will need is, this is a quilling tool, and it has a pointy end, which you can use to poke papers out of your die, or it has a slotted end, which will come in handy when we go to create our flowers. These are also 2 flower styluses, really, but they come in a flower shaping kit, along with a foam mat. Now this foam mat is from a different brand kit, but it doesn't matter. And as you can see, I have a larger size stylus for my large roses, and I have a slightly smaller sized one for my smaller roses. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take a cosmetic sponge because I ran out of clean daubers. And I'm using, this is Versacolor Pigment Ink number 35 Lilac. It's the only color I had that came close to matching my cardstock. So what I'm going to do is I'm just taking this and I'm flicking just a tiny bit of color on the ends of each petal. See if I can show you. Get in a little closer. There we go. And I'm just laying a tiny bit of color on the edges, and I'm going to do that all the way around. Actually, this sponge works pretty good. I was using some daubers the other day, and as I was flicking the ends, the foam was being cut by the paper, and so I had little pieces of foam everywhere. And this actually, I'm kind of liking this better. Now this very last petal, you're going to come down and do the side also. So I don't know if you can see that. Doesn't look like it's showing up very well, but anyway, there is our tinted petal, and you're going to do that for all 4 of the small flowers. The larger flowers are going to stay the color they are. Now, to shape our flowers, there's a lot of different ways I've seen how to do these. You can crumple them, you can take your fingernail and flip back the edges and all that, and I've tried them, and this, to me, creates the prettiest, most natural looking rose. So you can see it and decide for yourself. But anyway, I'm going to take, this has a teeny tiny little stylus on the opposite end of my other larger size. So I'm going to take the larger size and I'm going to start in this round circle and I'm going to form a cup. And that little cup will be where our petals will turn and sit inside. Now I have the color side facing up, the front of the flower, and I'm going to take my stylus and I'm just going to rub along this straight edge here and up the middle of each petal, and I'm breaking up those fibers. You don't want to do it too terribly hard because you don't want to rip your paper, but as you can see, by doing this already our paper is curling the way we want it to form our rose, because this is all going to get rolled up. So I'm just going to keep working my way around like so. Kind of gets like a little snake once it starts curling. It's hard to get where you need to get. But as you can see, I'm not spending a lot of time. I'm just breaking down those fibers, softening the paper, weakening it a little bit. Okay, so there we have that part done. Now we're going to carefully unwind it and we're going to lay it face down. So the ink side is down. And now we're going to switch to the small stylus. And what I'm going to do is just go back and forth along the edge of each petal, kind of doing a C-stroke, following the shape of that petal. And you'll see that the tips are starting to curl inward, which is what we want. We want to form nice, pretty rose petals. So I'm going to continue and do this all the way around, like so. And this will make sense once we start to put this puppy together. Sorry if this is boring you to tears, but this is part of the time-consuming part of making this card. And you can imagine I lost count at how many roses I had to make for all the cards I made. There were so many. I think it took me all day just to make roses. So I had the roses down pretty pat. And this is what worked best for me, so I thought I would pass it along, share it with you, and save you some of the trial by error that I went through. So you want to be careful. You don't want to rip this as you unfold it, because it gets kind of delicate. And there's not much room here between the petal and the base. But we're getting there. We're coming around to the end. Curl that out of my way. Some people use their fingernail and flip it, the edges back, but Sometimes I find a rip, and this just, to me, just seems to work a lot better. Okay, there we go. Our rose is ready to assemble. I have the front facing me now, and you can see the petals are curling over backwards. Now I'm going to take my quilling tool, and you can see the slot. That is going to get slid up onto this petal like so. And I'm going to pinch that edge, and now I'm going to start rolling. And I'm not worried about anything except trying to keep the bottom edge of these petals somewhat even. You don't want them to start winding down the shaft of that tool. So it's kind of tricky to do. I mean, it gets away from you, but just be patient. And you can see our rose is starting to form. I got my paper twisted here. These are a lot of work, but they're so pretty, and I think they're so worth it, and they make such a nice statement on the card when they're done. Or even if you do like mixed media pieces or something, they're pretty to add. Okay, and now I'm all the way to the end. So I'm going to make sure that I have all these pieces pretty level. I'm going to wind this around, and I'm going to take my hot glue, and I'm going to put some in this little cup. And I'm going to set that on the table, and I'm going to put my rose in there. And it will naturally start to relax a little bit. And there we have it. It's already glued in place. I like the hot glue gun because it's pretty much instantaneous, and you get a beautiful little natural looking rose. Isn't that pretty? So, following the same procedure, take my bigger stylus and do the same thing with my large flowers. Start with the ball, the cup, the circle, make your cup, okay, and continue around. I'm not going to bore you while I do all these other roses. I'm going to go ahead and do them off camera, and then I'll be back. Now I finished my roses, and I've adhered them to my card using the hot glue, and I'm calling it finished. I didn't put any greenery or any fluff around the roses because the background matte piece is so busy that I didn't want to detract from that, or I didn't want to detract from the cross. I kind of wanted to just bring your eyes in to the center focal point, and I didn't want it to become too overly frou-frou. So then I got to thinking about how these were going to be presented to the recipients, and my sister-in-law was going to hand distribute some of these with the roses. And I'm thinking, well, you just don't want to go, hey, here's an Easter card for you. So I came up with the idea of making a box to put the cards in. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And to make my box, what I have used is magazine backer board. This is my new love. I have a love affair with this stuff. It's really nice. It's what magazine collectors use to put behind their magazines in a protective sleeve to keep them from getting banged up or bent or creased or whatever. I did a blog post and explained all about it, where you can get it and what have you. But I really like this stuff because, as you can see, the one side is kind of glossy and the other side is matte. So it makes really professional looking boxes. Now to make our boxes, we're going to need two pieces. For the bottom, it's going to be 6 5/8 by 8 5/8. And we're going to score it at 3/4 of an inch all the way around. for the lid, it is going to be 6 1/4 by 8 1/4, and it is going to be scored at a 1/2 inch all the way around. So I'm going to get out my scoreboard here, and this stuff is pretty thick, so I'm going to stand up for this, and hopefully I don't get my big head in the camera. You want to score it on the matte side, and like I said, at 3/4 of an inch. Okay, and this stuff, like I said, it's not like working with regular cardstock. It's almost like working with a chipboard. So we're going to carefully score this on all 4 sides. This is the bottom piece, the larger piece. And I designed this box specifically for these cards so that it will hold them perfectly. Now this is the lid, and this one is going to be scored at 1/2 inch, which is a little narrower, so you want to keep your fingers out of the way. Believe me, ask me how I know. So you can kind of see how hard I'm pressing, firmly I'm pressing on this. I'm getting a crease in my finger. Oops. Okay. And finally, the last edge. Okay. Now we're going to start with our base. Oh, excuse my head. And with the long side facing you, we're going to snip these corners up to our score line. And then we're going to come in at an angle and make a little wedge. Now make sure your angle is on this tab and not on the side of the box. We're going to do that all the way around, like so. Make sure you're right on that score line. And you cut your wedge from your tag. Okay, now before I assemble this, I'm going to erase my little notes. Once I get it put together, it's going to be hard to do. So we're going to take our folder and fold along all our crease lines, and we're just going to gently go across them. We don't want to be too rough, because we want to keep a nice edge on our box. But where I'm going to be a little rougher is on these tabs. I want to really make sure that they're folded and creased well to make a nice sharp corner. Oops. I'm going to do that all the way around, like so. Now I'm going to take my glue gun. I'm going to apply some glue to the tab, and I'm going to fold it up and pinch it in place. We want a nice even corner there. Let's make sure they're lined up well, and I'm going to do that all the way around. Now you can use the double-sided score tape, you can use the red tape, I don't know the name of it, but it's kind of a reddish pinkish color. That'll work well. These do not work at all to hold this. This stuff is just too strong, and it'll just pop right off. The glue gun is convenient. It's easier, it works, and it will hold this in place. So there's the bottom of our box. already made, and as you can see, our card fits in there perfectly, just snug. It's not going to rattle around, and it's going to give enough depth, if you can see that, to protect our roses. Now for our lid of our box, which is the smaller piece, again I'm going to erase my notes. We're going to do the same thing, except this time we're going to go along the shorter end. And I do this so that the bulk of the tabs do not meet in the same place on the box. You'll have the tabs on this side on the bottom and this side on the top. So we're cutting up to that score line again, making our little wedge. Now since this is our top piece, I'm not going to really crease this with the folder. I'm just going to kind of finger fold it. And the reason for that is because I don't want to split the glossy top. I want a nice, smooth, rounded edge. And see how nice that is? So I don't want to risk damaging that with the folder, using the folder. So I'm just going to do that, but I will use it on my little tabs again to make sure that I get nice, strong corners, crisp and sharp corners. So there we go. And the same thing, we're going to take our glue gun and glue this in place. We're going to do that all the way around. I love hot glue. I hate all those little stringies that you get. They make a mess everywhere. Okay. More glue. I love how fast it is too. I mean, it glues quickly. You don't waste a lot of time. That's for sure. I'm trying to get all this excess off my fingers. Okay, and finally the last piece. And there we have our nice lid for our box, and it fits on here perfectly. Like so. It ends up being 3/4 of an inch deep, which is plenty of room to protect our roses. Now you probably could send this through the mail. I haven't done it. I haven't tried it. So I don't know how it will withhold our postal system. You could just tape it shut and put your labels on here. I would suggest possibly maybe putting some bubble wrap or packing peanuts in the center so that it doesn't get squished, because I don't know about you, but some of my mail comes and it looks like an elephant sat on it. So just to give it some added protection. Now I have this lovely card inside this custom-made box, all ready to give the person. And I thought, well, the box is pretty bland, so I decided have to decorate the lid. So in order to do that, I took a 5x7 piece of my dark color and I adhered it to my box, centered it on there, on my lid. Now when you're sticking these on the lid, I turn it over and press it so that I'm not squishing it, if you know what I mean. I cut another piece of this, just like we did on our card, And I'm going to adhere it the same way. Get out my glue pen. I wanted it to look like the card, but not look like the card. And somewhere I wanted the Easter, Happy Easter message to come across. And I thought this would just be a really nice presentation to give someone. And then if they ever have a little gift to give someone for Easter, they can reuse the box. Now I will place this centered on here. Turn it over and press. There, it's well adhered. Now, I didn't want to put the cross on the front because I kind of spoiled the whole thing about the cross on the inside. So instead, I thought I'd do something a little different, and I'll put some ribbon on here, since it is kind of a gift box. And this ribbon is really, really coarse and stiff, so I'm just going to scrunch it up a little bit. And what I'm going to do is put some of my snail glue on my ribbon, and I'm going to lay it where I think is the center. And then I have a little ruler here, and I'm going to see, and no, it is not. So I'm going to move it down a little bit and try again. Let's see, 3 1/4, 3 1/4, pretty dang close. So I'm going to press that in place. Then I'm going to come on the side here. I'm going to put a little bit of my snail tape to hold this on the side, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. And hold it in place. Then I want to add another piece of ribbon. This is vanilla color, and it's more of a solid satin, but I thought it was pretty against that. So I'm going to take some snail and just run it along here and get it in the center. Press it in place. And for this one, because it's not sheer, I'm going to put a little bit of glue, very little bit of hot glue, just to hold that against the side, because I don't want it peeling back. I'm going to do the same thing here, just a tiny, tiny little bit of glue, and press it into place. Now I'm going to take these and I'm going to trim them down to about 1/2 inch above the rim of the lid. And I have this craft stick that I'm going to use to save my fingers. And I'm going to place some glue on the inside of the lid, and I'm going to take my craft stick and I'm going to push this ribbon into that glue. And that will really hold it into place. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. A little bit more. Make sure I have enough, but I don't want to get too much. And again, pressing that in, and then that ribbon is not going anywhere. So there we go. Now you've already seen how I did my oval and embossed it, so I'm going to adhere that to the front. And I'm going to center it over my ribbon. and press it into place. Now I needed 2 more ovals that needed to be slightly smaller, and I wanted to use the dark color and my vanilla, which will be stamped. So for that, I used my Spellbinders Classic Ovals, the large, and I used the 2 largest sizes. The largest was for my darkest color, and the next largest was for my vanilla color. So I'm going to now add some glue to my purple. And that will get, excuse my head, but I want to make sure I get it centered. Okay. Press. Now this, I want to stamp my greeting on. And I have a nice little Happy Easter stamp here. And I'm going to get some black VersaFine Onyx Black that I'm going to use. And I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper, because I always like to test my stamp on that first. Make sure I'm getting a good clean image. Which that's pretty good. My A's a little. Perfect. So I ink up again, and I will come over and I will center this on my oval. And there I have my greeting. And I'm going to give this a few seconds to dry, and while that's drying, I'm going to make a couple bows. And I'm going to take a piece of this ribbon, and again, scrunch it up because it is very, very stiff. And I'm going to make a bow. This is how I make my bows. I just kind of do it with my fingers and then pull it. Okay, and then I just pull the tails until I get the size loops that I want, and then I pull tighter, and I just keep adjusting it until I get it to look like what I want, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to take a piece of this ribbon, and again I'm going to do the same thing. Grab my loops, pull them tight, and then just adjust them until I get them the size I want. And I like the looks of that. So I will come back and glue on my sentiment. And place that right in the middle. There we go. And finally, I'm going to take my glue gun, put a little bit of glue, and attach this on that dark border. And then I'm going to take my littler bow, and I'm going to place that right on top. Hold them for a few minutes. And then just trim off the excess, like so. And there we have a beautiful box that holds our beautiful card and will make a very nice way to give this card to hand it to somebody, don't you think? I think so. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope that you learned a few things. maybe some insight into how I designed this whole thing and how it all came together. And I hope you'll take a chance and make one for yourself. See you next time.